Now, Kyle Holbert asked me the other day, what kind of flies do I use for ice fishing? And that was a pretty easy answer because I have never been ice fishing. But I did some quick research and learned that ice fishermen use a lot of the same patterns that we use for trout. And I found an easy pattern that's not only going to be great for us trout fishermen, but I think it's going to work for you ice fishermen as well. Hello everybody, welcome to Savage Flies. I'm Matt, thanks for stopping by. So after doing a little bit of research, I learned that ice fishermen out there use a lot of the same bugs we do for trout. Obviously not dry flies, typically the heavily weighted nymphs with tungsten beads and a lot of jig hook type flies. So I found this easy pattern, didn't really have a name. It's kind of a marabou tail, wire body, and ice dub for the thorax, but it does have a tungsten bead on a jig hook. And a cool thing about a pattern like this is really, aside from the hook, just those three materials, the tail, body, and thorax, and almost an infinite number of flies you can tie with just these three materials. So do me a favor, if any of y'all watching this are ice fishermen, let us know in the comments what kind of flies do you use. So that's it, pretty cool pattern, kind of fun to tie. I think you're gonna like it. Let's give it a shot. So there's one in the vise, just a small little marabou and tungsten bead jig. And what sizes for this guy? Really, whatever you want. Whatever works for the fish you're targeting. I'm going to tie this on a size 12, and that's 2.4 millimeter tungsten slotted bead. Now, when you tie with the jig hooks, you do kind of want that slot on there. It doesn't really matter where you have it oriented, but with that slot, it just sits a little bit better around the bend in that hook. And I am going to put just a small bit of weight, some 015. I'll put about 4 or 5 wraps right here in the back, and then I will slide it up in there. Just kind of secures that bead a little bit. Right there, that should be just fine. And I'm going to use black thread. This is 70 denier, but in the color scheme I'm going to tie, I think any thread would work. And you probably aren't going to see the thread. I thought about going with a white, but then again, I just don't think you're going to see it, so it probably doesn't matter. So let's take the thread all the way back to the start of the bend. And again, what's kind of fun about these flies, any color combination you want. That last one I had a gray marabou on the tail, this one I'm going to do white. So this one's going to be a predominantly white fly, I think. So I'm just going to take a little bit of that, maybe it was a third of this big chunk right here, and kind of long tail, but not huge. Let's see what that's going to do right there. Maybe a little bit longer than that. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and snip it because that big feather would just get all in my way there. So I think that's about enough. Let's catch this in, a couple of tight wraps back here. Take it back as far as we want the tail, maybe another wrap back. Okay, and I'm going to use this marabou right here to help smooth out that underbody. Do some real loose wraps right here, just till I get right back behind that weight. Okay, now I can snip this fluff off right here. And if I did it right, I'll have a pretty smooth transition between this marabou and that weight. Okay, that's smooth enough. And I'm going to try and cover up all that white in case I don't put my wire wraps down perfectly. All you'll see under it will be the black. But again, I don't think that's all that important. Okay, another cool thing about this, use whatever you want for a wire body. You don't even have to use wire, but I want it to be pretty heavy. And I'm going to use some of this blue UTC wire in a size brassy. Now you could go to a medium if you wanted, or you could even do a small. It's just going to take you more wraps and use more of it. But it's really just going to give your body, that color, kind of like a copper john. So, all right, I got that caught in the whole length of the hook, and I'll take my thread back up, not all the way up because I'm going to do a little thorax, so I'll probably stop the body about right there. Now I'll just wrap this up, touch and turns, and I wouldn't worry the least bit if you don't get these perfect. I mean, this is not going in a shadow box. Hopefully it's just going in a fish's mouth. So go ahead and wrap this up all the way up to the, or almost all the way up to the bead. Okay, when you got it far enough up, let's go ahead and catch this off. You could do the old trick where I'll show you, just put your thread up, wrap it back around, and then round it again. Now you've kind of got an extra reverse wrap holding that wire in. I don't think it's that necessary here. I'm just going to lay it flat and then get a few wraps on it while it's flat. Now it'll certainly spin off without giving me any trouble. Okay. And looking back, I probably should have gone to a medium wire because that one took me about a minute in real time to wrap that body, where if I'd had a thicker wire, it wouldn't take so long. Okay, and I'm going to use an ice dub on this, but you don't necessarily need to. But I envision ice fishermen fishing deep and in some dark water, so you kind of want something that might have a little bright. So this is an ice dub, but it's a UV too. So it's a white and a UV. And I want to put it on here pretty thick. Maybe I might not need it that thick, but I've got it thick, so we'll see how it does. I can always pick some of it out or trim it. So see what I'm doing right here? I've got it on my hook right there. All right. And that one, that's probably a little bit more than I want, so I'm going to pick some of that out and trim it before we're done. But here's a trick, or not necessarily a trick, just a tactic that I don't do a lot and I haven't shown a lot in my videos. But in a fly that you can't really do a lot of head cement, I'll just take my super glue here. So this is super glue, and I will put a touch of bead, a drop of it, to your thread, somewhere down that first 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch that's close to the hook. And see that? I've got a couple of little drops on it right there. I'm just going to wrap it around up in there, and 2 or 3 wraps, and that bead of super glue will be sinking down into those thread wraps. Now I can get away with about a 3-turn whip finish, and the fly is probably pretty secure. Let's take care of this and then do a little cleanup here. One I did right before here. Before this one I didn't need any cleanup, but I put too much ice dub on here, so let's just take a little trim to it right here. Yeah, that's going to be fine. So I think the profile we get with this one is going to be just fine. But that's it, as simple as that. And again, any color combination you want, mix up your body color, your thorax and tail color. It's a pretty simple fly. And I think that's going to be effective, not just for ice fishermen, but anytime you'd fish a jig hook for small panfish or crappie, whatever. So that's it, everybody. I appreciate you watching. Y'all take care, and we'll see you next time.